Okay, so today we're going to start chapter 2, section 1. We're going to actually split section 1 up into 2 days. So today is section 1A. So what we're going to do is talk about slope-intercept form, point slope, and standard form. These are all the forms for a linear equation. So when it's in slope-intercept form, you might have also remembered this as being y equals mx plus b, where m in the formula is your slope, and the b in the formula is going to be your y-intercept. When you enter your answers in WebAssign is going to expect you to enter the y-intercept as an order pair. So it's always 0, comma, and then a number. The point slope formula, this is y minus y1 equals m, which again is the slope, times x minus x1. So in this particular form, the x1, y1 is going to come from an order pair, and then you would replace. Then the standard form, that is going to be ax plus by equals c. There can be no fractions and no decimals in this form. And the number in front of x must always be a positive number. So examples of each of these, an example of y equals mx plus b form or slope-intercept could be y equals 2x plus 5. Now your slope could also be a fraction. It could be 2/3 x. And the b could be a fraction as well. For point slope, again, it's just going to be, let's say your x1, y1 was the order pair 2, 4. And then when you plug it in to the formula, let's say your slope was also 3. So y minus 2 equals 3 times x minus 4. And then a standard form example could be like 2x plus 3y equals 4. You can't have fractions, and your a term has to be positive. So let's go ahead and now look at the slope formula on the next slide. So the formula for slope is, it's always the change in y divided by the change in x. Slope is also known as rise over run. Slope is going to be indicated with a lowercase letter m. And what you're going to do is you're going to subtract two order pairs. So what I like to do is think of these little subscripts as labels. Think of this as the first one as order pair number 1. And then the second one as order pair number 2. And then you're just going to take the y's, subtract them, and take the x's and subtract them. Once you're given the two order pairs, it doesn't matter which one you label as the order pair number 1 and which one is order pair number 2. Now, whenever you want to find an x or a y-intercept, what you're going to do is plug in zeros. So if you want to find the x-intercept, you're going to plug in a 0 for the y. And this is going to be where our graph intersects the x-axis. For the y-intercept, we would plug in a 0 for x. And this is going to be where our graph touches the y-axis. So let's go ahead and also look at some horizontal and vertical lines. Okay, next, vertical and horizontal lines. Whenever the line is vertical, the slope is undefined. It has no slope to it. So if you think about it, when you have a graph, so let me go ahead and just quickly sketch a coordinate plane here. This is my x-axis. This is my y-axis. And let me add some little markings here and here. So let's say I graphed a vertical line through the 3. This graph would be x equals 3. So my vertical line, if you think about it, this picture looks like it's going up and down. And if you take the u from up, the n from and the d from down, it looks like it's starting to spell the word undefined. So when your graph of your line is going up and down, when it's vertical, your slope is undefined. Now on WebAssign tonight, whenever the slope is undefined, you're going to type in the letters D and E. Does not exist. So whenever you don't have a slope, if it's vertical, type in D and E. If there's no y-intercept, like this one, you would type in D and E. Does not exist. Notice my red line does not cross the y-axis. So there is no y-intercept. Now, whenever you have a vertical line, the equation for it is always going to be x equals a number. And notice what I put here, x equals 3. Now, whenever you have a horizontal line, and let's say I want to draw it right here through x equals, or y equals 2. So this could be my horizontal line, and this is the equation y equals 2. This slope is 0. And if you want to think, well, the word horizontal has some O's in it, think of that as having a slope of 0, because the word vertical doesn't have any O's in it. So whenever your graph is y equals a number, and there's no x in it, that's going to end up forming a horizontal line. So in this case, it was the y equals 2. Notice my y-intercept. It's touching my y-axis at 2. So my y-intercept, and again on WebAssign, you're going to key it in as an ordered pair. It would be the ordered pair 0, 2. And again, your slope, your m, would be 0 for that horizontal line. Now, when you do the slope formula, remember your y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, whenever you do that calculation, what's going to end up happening when it's horizontal, you're going to end up getting a 0 in the numerator and then a number in the bottom. Whenever it's vertical, you're going to get a number in the top, but then you're going to get a 0 in the denominator. And remember, whenever we have a 0 in the denominator, this is undefined. So this is why when we do the slope formula, be able to interpret it if I give you 2 ordered pairs. If after you do the subtraction of your y's and your x's, remember the 0 in the denominator is undefined, but the 0 in the numerator is equal to 0. So let's try some examples. So in tonight's homework, you're going to have to answer the questions, find slope, find y-intercept. Again, the y-intercept will be entered as ordered pairs, and you're going to have to graph it. So if you're struggling with the graphing portion, what I want you to do is find a picture like I did here, put the picture of the coordinate plane in your Notability, and then graph it precisely. Okay, don't just randomly draw the line, show me the y-intercept, show me how you're moving from the slope. So if you struggle with graphing in the WebAssign that's due Friday, do the graphs in your Notability, and then I'll go back and hand grade it and give you the points back. Okay, so if your equation is in y equals mx plus b form, remember the m here, this is your slope. And remember, slope is rise over run. So you could just graph it by moving the rise and the run. And then the b, this is your y-intercept, also known as your beginning point, where we're going to start. And then from there, we can move the slope. Also remember that when this m, so when your slope, your m, is a positive number, know that the graph is going to be rising from left to right. But when your m is a negative number, know that it's going to fall from left to right. So when the slope is positive, it's going to rise. When it's negative, it's going to fall. So let's go ahead and try and graph some of these. I'm going to graph the first one. I'm going to graph this one in red. This one's already in y equals mx plus b form. So my first point is going to go in on the positive 1, and then from there, I'm going to use my slope, my 2 over 3. I'm going to rise up, and then I'm going to run to the right 3 from my beginning point. So this is where I'm going to begin. So I'm going to come over here on positive 1, put my first point, and then from there I'm going to move up 1, 2, and then I'm going to run 1, 2, 3 to the right. And that's where my second point is going to go. Now, if you remember from your geometry days, all you need are 2 points to make a line, so you can just connect them. Remember, if you want a more precise line, you can keep moving. You can rise 2 and run 3 over and over again. You guys are in Notability. You can just hold down your stylus and make a nice, pretty straight line. I am not Notability, so let me go ahead and try to draw as straight as I can. And this is number 1. Let's go to number 2. It's also already in slope-intercept form. So when I go to graph this one, my beginning point, again, is going to be on positive 1. But this time my slope is negative. And I can turn that whole number, or that integer, -4, into a fraction by adding a 1. So this time, my rise, I'm going to go down. But I'm still going to run to the right. Now, you could also go up and then to the left. One of the movements needs to be in the negative direction. But I'm going to go ahead and graph this one. And I'm going to put my first point on positive 1. Same place. And I'm going to go down 4 and over to the right 1. Remember, when you have a negative slope, it's falling from left to right. So this would be your graph for number 2. For number 3. Okay, so for number 3, it's not in slope-intercept form. So what we can do here is put it into y equals mx plus b form by dividing everything by a 3. And you're left with 2/3 x minus 1/3. Now, this one might be a bit challenging for me to graph because my graph is going by ones. So I'm just going to approximate my beginning point, which is -1/3. So if this is a question on WebAssign, your slope is 2/3, and your b, your y-intercept, is going to be 0, -1/3. Remember, you're going to enter it as an ordered pair. So let me come over to my graph. I'm going to put my first point, and let me do this in a different color here. Let's do this one in purple. I know I did the work in blue, but I'm going to graph it in purple. Okay, so I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to put it approximately, I'll put my first point like right here below the x-axis. I'll say that's about -1/3. Now, your slope is 2, so you're going to rise 2 and run 3. So I'm going to go from -1/3, and I'll go up 1 spot, and then this one, and then run 1, 2, 3. So again, right around here. And again, you can connect your points. When it's fractions, and if your graph doesn't go by fraction increments, just get it the best you can. So I can connect my points here. And this would be that graph. Notice it's a positive slope, so it's rising. Now, another way that you could have graphed this one is by finding the x and the y intercepts. So for number 3, another way to have done this problem is, remember, to find intercepts, you plug in zeros. Now, when I used to teach this to my Algebra 1 class, I would teach them to use a cover-up method. But let me just go ahead and do it the official way. So if I want to find the x-intercept, I'm going to set y equal to 0. So 3 times 0, 2x minus 1. 0 equals 2x minus 1. Add 1. Divide by 2. And my x-intercept is 1/2. So 1/2 comma 0. And then if you wanted to find the y-intercept, you're going to set x equal to 0. So 3y equals 2 times 0 minus 1. 3y equals 1. Divide by 3. And that's a negative 1. Y equals negative 1/3. And again, as a coordinate, 0 comma negative 1/3. So if you want to graph using intercepts, you would put a point on your x-axis at this point and on the y-axis at this, and then connect them. So let's see how close I came. So my x-intercept is supposed to be at the 1/2, which is pretty close to it, and then the 1/3. And then you could connect the points. That's another way to come up with the graph, by finding the intercepts by plugging in zeros. Now for the next one, notice there's no x here. So I can go ahead and get my graph into, solve it for y. So I'm going to take 3y minus 5, divide it by 3, and y equals 5/3. Remember, whenever it's y equals a number, this is going to be a horizontal line when I'm done. So it's actually going to go through the y-axis at 1 2/3. If I make that improper fraction. Now, WebAssign will take improper fractions, but when you're graphing, you need to know that 5/3 is 1 2/3. So I'm going to go ahead and graph it. Now, your slope here of a horizontal line, my slope here is 0, and my y-intercept is 0 comma 5/3, or you could say 0 comma 1 2/3. So let me go ahead and graph this one. And again, I can put my y-intercept here at 1 2/3. So it's about here. And then it's just the horizontal line through that point. And for number 5, when it's x equals a number, do this one in pink, it's going to be a vertical line. X equals 1/2. Notice when it's x equal a number, this is a vertical line. And remember, a vertical line, the slope is undefined. So on WebAssign, you're going to enter DNE, does not exist. And also your y-intercept is not going to exist because it's not going to cross the y-axis. It's going to go right in here through the 1/2. And this will be x equals 1/2. It's a vertical line. Now, for the next one, we can either put it into y equals mx plus b form. So I could add the 3x. And I get 2y equals 3x plus 6. Divide everything by 2. And I get y equals 3 over 2x plus 3. So your slope is 3 over 2. Your y-intercept is the ordered pair 0 comma 3. So if you were to graph this, what you would do is put your first point on 3 on the y-axis, and from that, you're going to rise 3 and run 2. And then connect your points and graph your line. Now, let me show you what I used to teach to my Algebra 1 students. Again, essentially what we're doing is plugging in zeros when we want to find intercepts. But what I'm going to do is teach you a trick I call cover up. So if I take my equation And let's say I want to, and let me write it down again twice. So let's say I want to find the x-intercept. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cover up the y, and then I'm going to solve what's left over. So negative 3x equals 6, divide by negative 3, and my x-intercept is negative 2 comma 0. If I wanted to find my y-intercept, I cover up, let me do it in a different color, I cover up the x, and then I solve what remains. 2y equals 6, divide by 2, and y equals 3, so the y-intercept is 0 comma 3. And then what you can do is graph these 2 points and then connect them. And that's what I did here. Notice I got my y-intercept here, my x-intercept here, and then I could have connected them. So you can either choose to find intercepts and graph, or put it into y equals mx plus b and graph. Either way. Let's try the next one. For this one, again, if you want to go ahead and put it into y equals mx plus b form, I need to get the y by itself. So I'm going to subtract 3. Negative 3x minus 3 equals 2y. Divide all 3 pieces by 2. So then this gives me y equals negative 3 over 2x minus 3 over 2. 3 over 2 is 1.5. So my slope here is negative 3 over 2. And my y-intercept is going to be the ordered pair 0, negative 3 over 2. So for my graph, I can go ahead and put my first point at the negative 1.5. So right here. And then I'm going to rise 3 and run 2. So I can, since it's negative, I could go down 3 and then run over here. Now I can also go up and left. And then there would be my other point. Notice the negative slope, the line is falling down. For number 8. Now again, on that one you could have also done the cover up, and you could have solved and found the intercepts that way as well. For the next one, I'm going to go ahead and solve for x. So I'm going to add 1. Notice this one doesn't have a y. Divide by 4, and x equals 3 over 2. Remember, when it's x equals a number, this is a vertical line. And remember, the slope of your vertical line is undefined. It does not exist. This will also not have a b, a y-intercept. Does not exist. So when I go to graph this, remember 3 over 2. You could also say that it's 1.5. So it's going to be the vertical line through 1.5. So 1.5 right here. Oh, I want to do, yeah, in blue. Okay, so here is the graph for x equals 1.5 or 3 over 2. The next one, instead of trying to work with this as a fraction and then have to divide it by 4, I'm going to clear my fraction first. So let me take number 9 over here. 2/3 x plus 4y equals 7. I'm going to multiply the entire equation by 3. And that's going to clear my fraction. I get 2x plus 12y equals 21. I'm going to get it into y equals mx plus b by subtracting the x. Now at that point, I could have also done cover up. Divide by 12. Y equals negative 1/6 x plus 7 over 4. I can reduce 21 over 12 to 7 over 4. Now this one will be a little bit more challenging to graph. My slope is negative 1/6. My b, my y-intercept, is going to be the ordered pair 0, 7 over 4. 7 over 4 is 1 3/4. So I'll go ahead and put my first point on 1 3/4, and then from that, I'm going to use my slope. I'm going to go down 1 and to the right 6. So at 1 3/4, so about here, I could go down 1 and then to the right 6. And put my point right here. And then connect the points and graph your line. And then for number 10, I'm going to go ahead and just put it in slope-intercept form by dividing everything by 3. Let me get purple now. This one will be in purple. So I'm going to divide everything by negative 3. And I get y equals negative 2 over negative 3x minus negative 1 over negative 3. These negative negatives become positives. So 2/3 x plus 1/3. So my slope is 2/3. My b, my y-intercept, is the ordered pair 0, 1/3. So again, I can place my point on 1/3 and then from there move the slope. So for this one, I'll go ahead and put it on the 1/3. And then from there, I'm going to rise 2 and run 3. And then you can connect your points and graph your line. And again, if you're struggling tonight with the WebAssign, find a picture of a graph and then graph it as best you can if it's fractions. If they're integer intercepts and slopes, then it should be nice and pretty. Let's try the next one. They just want us, no graphing now. We're just going to identify the slope on these. So for 11, it says to find the slope. So when it's in y equals mx plus b, remember the slope is right here. So my slope is 3. For number 12, this one is not in slope-intercept form. I can fix it up. So what I can do here is subtract 1, 2y equals 6, divide by 2, and y equals 3. Notice there's no x here. Remember, whenever it's y equals a number, this is a horizontal line. And you're memorizing that a horizontal line has a slope of 0. If it asks for the y-intercept, that y-intercept would be 0, 3. The y-intercept over on this one, the b, would have been 0, 1. Now for number 13, two ordered pairs, we got to do the slope formula. Now I could go ahead and say that this is going to be my x1, y1, x2, y2, 7 minus 3, 4 minus 4, 4 over 0. On the test, if you leave it like this, you're going to lose points. You need to tell me that this simplifies to undefined. On WebAssign, you're entering DNE. So you need to recognize that then when there's a 0 in the denominator, it's undefined. Let's try the next one. I can go ahead and multiply everything by 3 to get rid of the fraction first. And get 6y equals 2x minus 3. And now divide everything by 6. And this will give me my slope. 2 over 6 is going to simplify to 1/3. And 3 over 6 to 1/2. So my slope here is 1/3. My y-intercept is 0, -1/2. For 15, I'm just going to move the x over and then divide. So I'll put it into y equals mx plus b form. 3y equals -2x plus 5. Divide everything by 3. And my slope is -2/3. And my y-intercept is the 5/3. So slope, -2/3. My y-intercept, 0, 5/3. If you were graphing it, I would put it into a mixed number. Last one, 2 ordered pairs. Again, you can label them. It doesn't matter which one you label as order pair number 1 and which one is order pair number 2. Just stay consistent. So I'm going to do 3 minus 3, 4 minus 5. I get 0 over -1. You need to recognize that when there's a 0 in the numerator, this fraction simplifies to 0. And so your slope here is 0. It's a horizontal line. So here, again, to get it into y equals mx plus b, subtract the 3x. 4y equals -3x plus 5. Divide everything by 4. And y equals -3/4 x plus 5 over 4. The slope here is -3/4. The b would be 0, 5 over 4. 18, I'm just going to find the slope. Again, I could do y1 and x1 there and x2, y2. So subtract 5 minus 2. 4 minus -3. Be very careful with your negative integers. Do a key flip change here. This turns into 3 plus 4, so it's 7. So the slope here is 3 over 7. The biggest mistake I see with slope are students put the x's on top. The y's are always on top. And then this is a typo, this should be number 19, and this one should be 20. So go ahead and add the 1. 3x equals 6. Divide by 3. X equals 2. Remember that when it's x equals a number, this is a vertical line. And your slope is undefined. So the slope here, the m, undefined. And on WebAssign, DNE. And then the last one, do the slope formula. x1, y1, x2, y2. -5 minus -2. -3 minus -1. Key flip change it. Really becomes -5 plus 2. -3 plus 1. This gives me -3 over -2. Negative divided by a negative. And the slope is positive 3 over 2. And that is it for the notes on section 2.1a.